Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Deraney, and I'm your host.
Hey, Larry, awesome to see you, my friend. This is twice in one day. It's my pleasure, that's for sure.
Yeah, you too, Drew. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. You know, as the audience knows, I bring people on who have met adversity in their lives. Stuff happened to them, and they made a decision not to give up, and instead move forward and become a stronger person for it. And as you know, in life, we're promised when we're kids that life is linear. Things are going to happen a certain way if you do certain things, and we know it's not true. So reach back as far as you need to and find that defining moment, that moment where you either had a tap on the shoulder or a 2x4 upside the head that made you realize, Larry, there's a better way to live, man, and I'm going to change it. Tell us about that.
It's hard to pick.
It is.
There's been so many delineating moments like that were really critical. And if I look back on them, I can see a theme.
All right, let's go with the theme. Let's
okay. Should I do it? Should I do it that way?
Yeah, let's do theme. That sounds good if you can find a pattern.
So I map it back against my entrepreneur experience in a lot of ways, because for me, being naturally gravitating towards working for myself, primarily because I can't work for anybody else or they won't let me, but I really should be working for myself anyways, leads me down this path of having vision orientation. So I'm always thinking about what my vision is. So it's not just a job. It's like, this is my thing. This is what I do, and I've got to figure it out. So my big life events have matched up perfectly with my work trajectory. And if I look back, what I found was that there was always a moment where the feeling inside was, I can't do it like this anymore. And it's different in terms of what that means. So we can get specific about the content of that, but in essence, underneath it was like, I can't do this anymore. And I get into this, I can't do this anymore moment. And then the next thing that always went on in my head was, who am I to think that?
Okay. So
I began a little inner fight. This little inner fight. So this little voice inside me was telling me, no, you don't have to live like this. There's a better way. You don't have to keep doing this like this. And then immediately there was another voice that said, Larry, that's why they call it work. Or suck it up. Who are you to decide you want to have the life you want? Every time. And I could go through all the examples, but that's definitely the pattern.
And every time those conversations were happening, each time, did you lean towards the one that said it's supposed to be a struggle, or did you lean towards the one that said it's not supposed to be a struggle?
I always lean towards the grinded out part. And I don't know if that's inevitable, but now that I understand how I look at this, as I call it the reality system,
right? Okay.
Right, for entrepreneurs. And now I understand how it works. So if I look back, then I would say, okay, now I get it. So now I would know what to do. And now I do know what to do. So that problem's solved. I don't have that problem anymore. That's gone away. I know how to live in a way where I don't have that dilemma anymore. But back in the day, at the time, when I was going through these struggles, it was not until it got really bad that I started listening to the part of myself that actually knows what it's talking about.
All right. So let's think about the Larry back then who was more listening to the grind. If Larry of today brought back the reality that you know now to the grinded out Larry, would the grinded out Larry have listened to 2023 Larry?
Yeah. It's so interesting. I never thought of that, because that's such a great question. I never thought of that question. I couldn't find me
Mm,
I looked for answers outside of me and I didn't find me. What I found were a lot of people who taught me to be like them.
mm-hmm. Yep.
And nobody taught me how to figure myself out. I
Mm-hmm.
teach people how to figure themselves out. I don't teach people to be like me because they
Right.
won't,
Right.
can't, and shouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a very good perspective, because the truth is, when we're struggling at a young age without the wisdom or experience, we seek out somebody who's going to tell us what to do. And
Yes.
that tell us what to do is going to be tell us how they did it. Now, they don't interject that you can adapt. You should adapt what I'm telling you, not adopt. There's a difference between adapt and adopt. And we're not
Mm.
really taught that. So we go out there trying to adopt somebody else's process, and it doesn't work. And then we get frustrated until we get to where you are now, where you had that September 15th moment, right? Right. And I want you to get into that, where now you realize that it's got to be Larry's way, and maybe the Larry of today's way, not the Larry of 20 years ago's way.
You know, I'll give you a concrete example of
Yeah.
this from yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm part of a men's group in the Chicago area called Men Living, and I do
Okay.
retreats with them. And I've been through a bunch of these kinds of organizations, and this
Mhm.
is the one I'm involved in with right now.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's a national organization. They run retreats, and so we were at a meeting, and we're having the meeting, and somebody's talking about a coach they're working with.
Mhm.
So he's dealing with a lot of inner child drama pain.
Okay.
It's embodied pain. It was a tough upbringing,
Yeah.
and he's survived that upbringing, and he understands what happened. He
Mhm.
knows.
Right.
He knows. He understands, and he knows all of it. But his body hasn't caught up yet.
Mm.
Right? So that's the embodied understanding and release. So he hired a somatic coach to help him.
Mm.
So he's describing the somatic coach experience, and I'm listening to him, and it's going okay.
Right.
And he said, well, she said it's in my body.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, and I agree, that's true. So again, reality system. There's
Right.
opinions and beliefs and
Mhm.
someone's experience, and then there's how the reality system works.
Sure.
Yes, this stuff's in our body, and our
Yeah.
subconscious mind. It comes in, it lodges in the body.
Mhm.
It's this thought, emotion, or thought, feeling like not. You got
Right.
to get it out. You got to
Yeah.
bring the stuff out
Yeah.
and release it. So yeah, got that. But then the second thing she said was, you need to be more in touch with your body.
Mm.
And I thought, and I asked him a simple question. I said, when you feel a sense of truth coming, what does it look like?
Mhm.
And he says, well, I get an image.
Mm.
I said, oh, so you don't get that from your body?
Right. Right.
And he
That's
said, no.
mm.
Okay, so she's steering him in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. If he's not feeling that physical, yeah.
That's right, because she connects in through body because she's a somatic coach.
Yeah.
So she's taking what she knows, which
Right.
is solid, and applying it to someone who has a different archetypal makeup.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's going to screw him up. And this is what's always happened to me. There wasn't somebody like me who could stand back and say, who are you?
Yeah.
Ask me the right questions and
Mhm.
see what was happening and
Mm.
know how the system works so I would know what to do. Instead, they were saying, here's what I know.
So that might end up frustrating that poor guy, because he's going to be looking for that physical thing and it's not there. He's got more of a visual that he works off of. It's interesting. It's interesting. So, I'm wondering how you got from, and we haven't talked about Solopreneur Inc. yet, to Red Pill Pathway, because there is a difference
Oh, yeah.
in your philosophy. And so tell us about how your mindset shifted,
Mm.
and how you went from one, because one was very successful. And so you switch because like you maybe measured success differently and you had that transformation, or what made you leave something that was so successful?
So Solopreneur Inc. um, could have succeeded, but never quite did. So that was 2023,
Okay.
towards the beginning of the year. Now, I started another company years ago called Call Sales Partners, which is now rebranded Op Generation, like opportunity generation, which is a sales outsourcing company. So that's, I think, what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And that company did very well very quickly.
Okay.
And I I did it through just effort, struggle,
Okay.
make it happen. And that was fine as I was doing that. I wasn't always happy about the experience of doing it,
Right.
but I liked and was good at the fight. You
Was it a
know,
grind? Was it a grind like
it
you had talked
not
about?
always. Sometimes it was very exhilarating.
All right.
So
Okay. All
I
right.
was in this mode of I wanted to win this victory over myself. I wanted to win this victory over life, over the market,
Yeah.
get this company to succeed. And I really I dove in and I mastered how to struggle without complaining. I mastered how to make an effort effortlessly, where I just could get in there. I could work every day. I could work every day. I worked on challenges, all these kinds of things. And then I hit a moment where I wanted to start looking for the next challenge.
Okay.
So I was willing to take a risk. So I gave up some money to have somebody be a VP of sales for the company and started delegating more responsibility to look for my next challenge. This was after during the pandemic year.
Right.
So I'm out there looking around and I was like, I like it over here in the new land better. It seems more fun.
Okay.
There was this idea of this 7-figure company with 80 to 90% profit margins, doing it on social media. The whole kind of group product with leverage and scale approach. And I'm watching all this stuff and I'm like, I want to go over there. And instead of this thing, which was service oriented with clients and delivery of complex services and retainers and legal agreements and just all kinds. I was like, and the margins aren't the same. You have to have a team. I was like, I want to move away from that.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Now here's what happened is I found tons of challenges and I found a lot of different options through the summer.
Right.
And that company went through, my company, the Call Sales Partners at the time, went through a cash flow crisis. And I was looking at being maybe 200-300 grand in debt in the fall and bleeding money and thinking, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to make this work? Now, I didn't have a problem because I could have just let somebody go.
True. That's right.
I would have had plenty of cash. I would have been making 30 grand a month.
That's right.
Net. I just let a couple of people go. Instead, I'm digging a hole, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And a credit line that's starting to bloom. No. So I looked at this. It never occurred to me to feel okay about this. I looked at this and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work in this company anymore. I just can't. I'm exhausted by it. But if I let somebody go, then I have to do the work and I can't do that, but I can't afford them anymore.
Yeah.
And that was the dilemma. And that was when the change happened. And it happened on September 19th, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then everything changed on September 20th at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And then everything changed. And I call those quantum leaps.
All right. So you're able to pinpoint the 19th and 20th of September. I know it's a challenge to explain it in words to people who haven't gone through it.
Yes.
In your best ability. Try to elicit some kind of emotion out of us and explain what you went through. And I'm sure there are people in the audience who have gone through something like that.
So here's the emotion. It's a feeling of utter inner despair without any rational explanation.
Okay.
Right? So inside, it's a feeling of things are gravely wrong. They are not okay, or a hint of it. Now, some people at the hint of it wake up a bit and say, oh, I better pay attention to this. Many of us, including me, now I do. Now I can see it immediately now, but that took a few years working at it. But at that moment, those hints were all ignored in favor of seeking another challenge.
I see.
So the inner hint of something's kind of off here. Why doesn't this feel right? I was trying to solve that by finding a better new business opportunity. Right? Instead of looking inside and saying there's something going on inside me that's shifting. Because this is what we're taught in our culture, is not to pay attention to ourselves, we're taught to go chase things.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This is what happened. And I see this happening virtually to everybody I meet.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is why they're having trouble, because they're
Absolutely.
focusing on, if I get this thing over here,
Mhm.
then I'll feel different.
Right. Right. As opposed to just be who you are, and that thing will come if it needs to come. We were talking about needs and wants earlier this morning. And
Yes.
and I love your perspective on needs and wants. What was you had said something this morning about the struggle, and the struggle was all lifted when you realize you don't even have to have needs and wants, and then everything's okay. You said it much more eloquently than I.
Well, I'll try. So what happened on September 18th, or 19th, and then the 20th, was that my craving, my need, my lack inside for a feeling that things were okay, because I thought I needed to solve a financial and a business problem,
Right.
was not solvable. Because it's not solvable, the solution for me was to feel that experience of inner turmoil deeper.
Okay.
As I felt it deeper and I allowed that feeling to come, it melted. I melted into the feeling,
Right.
and I came out the other side of a tunnel in a different place
Unbelievable.
at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I felt like something different is going on. And I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But this is better than last night.
Absolutely.
And I went with it, and I turned that company over to this guy to run.
Right.
And I just said, my life will be different from this date. And I don't quite know how or why, but I am going to focus on growing and developing internally. Now, that's another what I call phase. Now we're moving into a new phase of entrepreneurship.
Okay. So you're talking September 19 and 20. Today we're recording this on October 26th. It has
This
not
is
been
2020.
2020. So you're talking about 3 years.
2020. Yeah, this was 3 years ago.
3-year journey.
There's many more chapters to this story.
I want to hear them. So
This
now,
was chapter, why don't we have time? But this is chapter 1 of the new chapter.
We've got some time. You're weaving this beautifully, because it seems to be like it ebbs and flows, yet it's similar. It's a similar occurrences, and you're starting to wake up to it. So now, we're 3 years ago, this happened. Then what was your next step in your journey?
So I looked at a journal I was keeping.
Okay.
And the difference in the entries in the journal are remarkable.
Okay. All right.
They're remarkable. It is like a different person wrote it.
Okay.
And what happened was I started to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, and I spent an hour with myself.
Okay.
I got rid of all the news channels.
Good for you.
I got rid of the email inboxes. I got rid of the working early stuff. Now, you don't have to do this early in the morning. You do it at night. You do it in the middle of the day. But I began what now 3 years later, I call it a daily vision practice. And I kind of got it down to 5 steps in 30 minutes. And that fundamentally changed everything. But it took a few years for me to really understand how it works and how to adapt it based on the principles of it mattering, but not the specifics of it, because different people do this in different ways and it needs to be adapted. So it took a little while to figure that out for myself first.
Right. Now, would you say that the tools are already within you, and it's a matter of somehow pulling them out and using them appropriately?
This was the fundamental insight. So the idea of winning the victory over self in my environment, which is the way I was living as an entrepreneur, was about inner knowing as well, but without any awareness of it.
Right.
So it was just being in the world, paying attention to what was going on, and mastering my environment as best I could. Now, there were inner connections happening, but I had no awareness of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and people misunderstand this. So, but I studied meditation, and I've done Tai Chi for many years. So I did all those things.
Right.
That is not inner awareness opening
No.
necessarily. It can be a vehicle to that, but it can also be just a vehicle for energy flow or awareness or focusing.
Right. Absolutely.
It's just a tool.
Yeah.
So I was doing all those things. I've always have. So what came out of those moments and being able to recognize, for me, the shift in my awareness of myself was that there was an inner life.
Okay.
Grow that inner life, develop that inner life became primary over paying attention to what was going on outside of me in my environment.
Absolutely. Right.
That was the shift.
Right.
Leap.
And I think the result of that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't give a shit about what anybody thinks about me.
Well, that took longer. So
that is a long journey.
Yeah, so now that I think comes from, I got there with that, and I was thinking a lot about that. I was thinking, I don't know if this inner journey thing necessarily parallels that. I think for me, it was a way of getting there.
Okay.
But I think, why don't we want to be ourselves?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to feel humiliation.
Right. Yep.
But when we feel enough humiliation, we don't care anymore.
Yeah.
We may feel a little embarrassed, but at some
Right.
point you don't even feel embarrassed anymore. You don't care at all.
Right.
You could be a completely unconscious sort of stand-up comic.
Yeah.
And if enough humiliation and punches in the face and heckling, after a while, you're like, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's about the shame experience.
Yeah, I would think so too, the shame experience. Yep.
So I had all my shame experiences that I could possibly have in my own mind over time. And as I had those myself, no one else could trigger shame in me.
What was your self-identity belief about? Were you into self-respect and self-love and self-trust to be able to withstand all this, or did you struggle with how you thought about yourself?
I felt shame around myself, a big chunk of my life, about just who I was, like an inner feeling of shame, lack, something's wrong with me. And then that evolved into living in a lot of fear, but being motivated by the fear, being motivated by anger at certain points, then later being motivated and very prideful about what I was doing. And I don't see those things as positive or negative.
No, right.
I just see them as motivators, and that is all gone. And now it's more about just experiencing who I am directly. So the way that people experience themselves depends on where they are, and there's nothing wrong with any of these things, one way or another. For me, I attached to a lot of beliefs all of the time. So I was always looking for an answer, something to believe in. What's the philosophy? What's the approach? What's the thing? And I think I've learned that what I believe in is what I know inside myself is right. So I don't need to subscribe to an orthodoxy of any kind, an approach or a guru or a philosophy or any of it. I'm just like, what feels right for me is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'll tell you where you're at right now. I'm not there yet. And I could see how that can be enlightening and just take the weight off your shoulders, because for me and for a lot of individuals who end up as an entrepreneur, but live their lives in the corporate world because that's what we were supposed to do, we're always trying to find where we fit in. With the round peg and the square thing.
Well, here. So I got my Jack Kerouac.
Oh yeah. I love that. You read that to me was before.
The round pegs and the square hole.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
And that's
so Drew, you know why I got all this stuff that I've got right now? Because I couldn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
I spent my whole life trying to get a corporate job or a normal carear. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for myself. I really did, but I didn't know that. But I was trying to conform and I couldn't. Kept failing at everything. And
tell you,
now
I
I see the
agree.
gift in it looking back.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, the more of us who conform and comply and who struggle and go somewhere else to try to conform and comply and can't, there's nothing wrong with us. I thought there was something wrong with me. I can't fit anywhere. What the hell,
Yeah.
It wasn't us. There's a need in this world for entrepreneurs, and we're what drives the country. But we're steered away from that when we're young, for whatever reason. So get us now to Red Pill Pathway and dive in a little deep to what you're doing now. I'm fortunate to be experiencing some of what you're going through now by hanging around with you, which I'm grateful for. So go and dive into that and tell us how you now are that different Larry Kaul. You're the different man.
Yeah, it's a shift. And the moment that this started happening came after another inner exhaustion moment.
Yeah.
So you start to see the theme.
Moment. Yeah.
This is not me now. I didn't create this reality system that we live in and how the world works, but I understand it now because I've been wrung out by it, wrung out to dry enough times now where I can look back and say, oh, oh, that happened again. How is that true? Like, oh, I'm starting to wake up to some of this stuff now.
Yeah.
What happened is I had spent all this time on this idea, Solopreneur Inc. And I'm out here with this free event and that I've been running for 3 years, and I'm doing all this social media stuff because I'm following the gurus. So who are say, get your content right, get your avatar, get your persuasion, get your funnel, get your offer. And I'm doing all of it. So I did all of it. I did the Russell Brunson, I did Alex Hormozy, I did Todd Brown. I mean, I go on and I did all the gurus, all of them. I went through every single one of them. I got Eugene Schwartz's book, Beyond Advertising, up there. I had Trout Rice Positioning. I go on and on and on. Cialdini's Persuasion. None of it worked for me.
No. Yeah.
None of it. I learned a lot, but absolutely none of it worked. So Solopreneur Inc. is up and running, and I'm like, I'm going to do a launch. So this was in January, and 20 people signed up and paid.
Okay.
And I felt awful.
Okay.
I felt awful. And I remember feeling afterwards when they showed up for the meeting, deer in the headlights, looking at me to tell them, here's what I know, and feeling I have nothing to offer these people.
Was that reality or your belief?
It was reality. Okay. So here's the reality. I built a company based on what I thought would work.
Okay.
Based on what the marketers taught me, as opposed to a company that matched the life I wanted to have.
Okay.
To be with the people that I wanted to be with, to do the thing I wanted to really do, that I had not yet connected deeply enough into myself to access yet. Right?
Well, it wasn't
necessarily. So now all of a sudden I got to show up and help people do something that I didn't want to help them do.
All right. Because 20 to me, the first time sounds pretty cool.
I thought it was going to be 200. And I remember being very disappointed and feeling, why doesn't anybody like me? Wow. And I spent at least $150,000 on social media coaches.
Oh boy. Okay.
Over 3 years. And I did all the programs, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, why does nobody like, and I would put out a post and I'd get, 20 comments sometimes, or I'd get a bunch of likes, or sometimes I get little, and the algorithm changed and I had to start over again. And then I would join one of these LinkedIn groups, and how do you do LinkedIn? And I remember this is exhausting.
Where you're chasing. Yeah. I can
exhausting.
I feel it, man. I feel it. Wow. I love the shift now because something's, I can feel.
Well, let me give you the shift. So what happened is, I gave up again, and I said, if this is going to be exhausting in the same way the business I left that would make me more money, if I just got rid of all this other stuff I'm doing, went back to it, I don't want to. Doesn't feel like it's what I want, but I should just do it because I got to be practical. At some point, I'm going to run out of money here. And I might as well be miserable with money than miserable without making money.
Absolutely.
Or more money. I can make more money faster in the other company. The minute that happened, everything changed again. And I had another leap,
Hmm.
an internal shift,
Okay.
and an opening and a feeling of expansion
Okay.
beyond what I'd experienced before. And that's when the red pill pathway ideas started to come in.
Okay. Wonderful. And then you started to channel that, and you're where you are right now. So where are we now with Red Pill Pathway?
Well, it's for entrepreneurs who look at success in terms of freedom, satisfaction, and happiness, and have a vision inside them. They're trying to get out. And my conviction around this is that that vision is supposed to happen
Okay.
if you're connected to yourself deeply enough. So this pathway is about how do you connect deeply enough with that part of yourself that's going to steer you in the right direction and bring that vision to life in a way that works for you, as opposed to what will work, as is taught by marketers who are going to perhaps help you be successful, often doing something you won't want later.
Absolutely.
Which is what happened to me twice. What's happened in my life 4 times, 5 times.
Right.
Where I succeeded at something, or sort of almost succeeded, and it would have succeeded if I kept going.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I didn't want.
Exactly.
5 times.
Right. And your approach now, the money will follow.
Yes.
And it will feel, you'll feel more aligned with your values when the money follows, because you're doing what you love, what makes you happy. And I love the approach, Larry, because most of what heals us comes from within. And if we're chasing something on the outside to define our happiness, we're going to fail. And more often than not learn from it. Because like you said, you went 4 times following the marketing people.
5 times.
4 or 5 times now. 5 times. Yep. Unbelievable. Now, what else do you have out on the horizon that you feel comfortable enough to share?
Well, I think what we're doing together with Brian Muka, so we're going to run a retreat in the Dominican Republic. A friend of mine has a retreat center down there. It's really incredible, like on the beach. And my idea for the let me turn this on. My idea for the retreat, when you and I were first talking about it, I was talking to Brian about it, was I've been on a lot of these things, and the experience of the expansion and the, whatever ayahuasca thing or the inner work thing or whatever the thing is that people are doing, then they come back and it's Monday.
Yeah.
So my idea is, let's reverse it. So why don't we spend a week figuring out how to have not only an incredible Monday, but like an incredible year, but not plan anything.
Right.
No goals, no strategies. I don't have any goals. I don't have any strategies. I have a vision.
Yeah.
And I know what to do because I'm connected with myself. So how do we connect with ourselves? There's a woman on Instagram who's very popular. And she had this video where she was making fun of her inability to sit on the couch for 30 seconds by herself, not checking her phone.
Okay.
And I thought, why would anyone follow someone like that to learn anything?
Yeah.
When that's the only way to know anything is to get to know yourself.
Yep.
So I'm like, let's have a get to know ourselves weekend, and then construct a strategy from that. That's not a strategy, just a different way of living throughout the.
Absolutely. Well, it was like what you mentioned before, how you pushed away all the social media and everything, to try to give yourself a chance to get to know yourself. Very important. So I'm grateful to be partnering with you and Brian on that. I think it's going to be a life changer for a lot of people, including us. Let me see. So now I know that the audience has certainly captured the essence of this Larry call, and it's nice to be able to see the difference between the two. They're going to want to get in touch with you, Larry. So we're going to make it easy here. So folks, redpillpathway.com. All right. That's Larry's website. You can scroll down and you'll see where it says on the entrepreneur experience. Definitely register for that. See what it's like. I was there this morning. It's unbelievable. There's a registration link in there. There's quite a few things that Larry's doing in line of what we just talked about. And just to talk about it is not enough. You need to experience it. So redpillpathway.com. I definitely suggest you hop on as soon as you finish listening to this episode. Geez, Larry, I could talk to you all day. All right. So I have two final questions. All right.
Yeah.
You ready for this? Okay.
Yeah.
So Larry, so picture this. You have the opportunity to sit down with young 7 to 10-year-old Larry to give him advice about life. After everything we talked about, what are you going to tell him?
It's very simple. And I really only would say one thing, and I would say with absolute conviction, I would say you already know the answer. Every single thing you think is true is right. Everything, every single thing. I get emotional just saying it to my old self because no one told me this.
Yeah.
No one ever told me I knew that those little those hinges, those gut instincts that other people were lying or wrong in what they believed, those ideas of recognizing in the society that what people who were incredibly successful were saying was wrong for me, and just often just plain wrong altogether, but definitely more importantly wrong for me, was something no one ever told me.
No. Well, thanks for sharing that with your younger self and the people out there who needed to hear that, Larry. All right, so switching hats. Now you have the opportunity. You're sitting down with young Larry, the entrepreneur, young businessman, and you want to give him advice about business. What are you going to tell him?
I think that the biggest hurdle for me, and it took a long time to really believe this, like to have just an inner certainty and knowingness around this idea, is that I separated what I always wanted from what I could have.
Always wanted. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought these were two separate things. And I see this a lot where people will say, well, my passion, my purpose, my vision, my mission, or whatever is over here, but that's not practical now because I got the stuff I got to deal with. So, but I want to be over here.
Okay.
Now, the solution is not to solve that problem. The solution is to recognize that if you have a vision inside yourself that's that big, it's going to happen. It's supposed to happen.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for a reality system, as I'm talking about it here, to be constructed to give somebody that talent or that vision, and then at the same time make it impossible to happen. It doesn't make any sense. No. But you don't get to have it the way you want.
Right.
But you have to do certain things, and once you learn how to connect into that vision, which is inside yourself deeper through these practices I'm talking about, and how to bring that out in the world in a way where you don't compromise it, but you're presenting it in a way people can understand, because usually these things require other people to change their thinking, and that triggers people. So there's a way of speaking where it's easier for them to understand. And I would tell, as a business person, I would say, basically, don't listen to them. Listen to yourself. And when you see something that feels right, go. If it doesn't feel right, don't listen to anything that person says, no matter how successful they appear to be or how persuasive they are.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very, very good point. Absolutely. Geez, yeah, our gut is 99% correct.
Yes.
99% of the time, our gut is correct, and we don't listen to it. We got to start listening to it. So, Larry, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm grateful.
Thanks, Drew.
I'm grateful we've known each other for these years, and just recently are getting close. It's amazing how things happen. I think we've known each other for probably about 3 years on and off through LinkedIn and all these events, and then for some reason, for whatever that universe reason is, we are now beginning on a journey that I think is going to change lives, and I'm excited to be on this path with you, my friend, this red pill pathway. I commend you for switching gears and going after what you believe you need as a human, as the human being you are meant to be. So thanks.
You too,
man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, you take care of yourself. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.